Hello everyone and welcome back to a new series I'm starting on the channel today. I thought about what I wanted to do for some videos over the summer, as now we're getting really into the last reign of the season here, obviously, with the Stanley Cup Final approaching. And I decided I wanted to do some history. I mean, not just any history, I kind of want to go season by season, from the year I was born to present, and maybe after that I'll start doing from 2003 or 4 to as early as I can get and find information on. So, we're going to start today with the first season that I was alive for. Fortunately for me, I don't remember it because it was a lockout season. 2004-2005, there was no NHL season. However, we need still to talk about it because it's important that we look back at how the game kind of transformed from the way it was pre-lockout, through the lockout, and then after the lockout. So I kind of got a timeline up here. I'm going to credit ESPN, I'm going to credit Wikipedia, and for all this information that I found, as well as some information from the hockey guys I've listened to over the years, and as well as some information from myself. So this kind of stuff that I know about. So 2004-2005. Everyone knew this lockout was coming a season before it even happened. Did anyone know it was going to last a full season? No. The defending Stanley Cup champion, the Tampa Bay Lightning, are the only team to have won the Stanley Cup, defend it, by not playing a single game. The Tampa Bay Lightning won the Cup in 2004 on the back of Nikolai Khabibulin, Brad Richards, Vinny Lecavalier, Dave Anderchuk, a ton of players there. Kubina, Boyle, Fedotenko, a bunch of names there. And 2004-2005, they never really got a chance to defend their title until 2005-2006. Of course, John Tortorella was coach there as well. And by then, that team was kind of already starting to end. Dave Anderchuk retired by that point, among several others who kind of were gone after the lockout because they kind of lost a full season. And actually, I'm going to pull something up just for later. Alright, so we're going to start at the beginning, now that I've got this information pulled up. 2004, September 9th. Deadline approaches, NHLPA makes offer meaning with the salary what to do. This wasn't the first lockout that happened. In 1992, right before the playoffs, there was a strike. Only time the players won anything. 94-95, it was half the season was cut short. It was a 48-game season, like 2012-13, in which players, how do I say, they didn't win, but they didn't lose either. It was kind of a middle ground after the 92 strike. The goal was to get a salary cap in. That's what the owners wanted. They were able to hold it off for another 10 years. 2004-05, the situation comes back again. As NHLPA makes an offer including a 5% salary rollback, Gary Bettman is famous for saying, "We're not even speaking the same language." So that's how negotiations were going about a month before the season. Perfect, so that just looks great. September 15th, Bettman announces the lockout officially, and then September 24th, preseason and first week of games are canceled, and progressively more is every 30-day advance, so if let's say on October 13th that game was canceled, I was opening night of that season. So if they didn't settle by October 13th, that means November 13th there wouldn't be any games either. They had a full month ahead of time. So all of this is going on. October 27th, cracks start to show. Mike Commodore says he will play under a salary cap. He is the first player, at least that I could find, to come publicly out and say, "I'll take the slap on the wrist, I just want to play hockey." Mike Commodore of the Calgary Flames defense, of course he lost in the final with Tampa, go on to Carolina and win the Stanley Cup in 2006. Mike Commodore is the first one to come out and say anything. And he wouldn't be the last. December 9th, so we go a full month ahead. NHLPA has a new offer. This time it's 24% rollback of salary, but no cap. The NHL counters 5 days later on December 14th. They accept the rollback proposal, but they add the salary cap. This whole thing is Bob Goodenow, who's the NHLPA president at the time, or executive, I'm not sure what it is. He's fighting the owners. He's saying no salary cap, no salary cap, no salary cap. That if there is no salary cap going to be implemented while I am still here. And, of course, Gary Bettman and the owners, Bettman is working on behalf of the owners, they want that salary cap. And with all due respect to the players, the salary cap was a necessary thing. The NHL was losing money. Teams were relocating. There were serious issues, of course, in the late 90s. We saw some effects of that. The Whalers moved to Carolina. The Nordiques moved to Colorado. The Jets moved to Phoenix. And Gary Bettman, of course, famous for saying as well, there's three letters that can describe what's wrong with the NHL, WHA. And, of course, that got Edmonton kind of freaked out, too. They didn't end up moving to Houston. It was close, but they didn't. And, of course, Calgary was in there. The Canadian dollar was down. There were a lot of issues, and the NHL wanted revenue sharing. The PA wanted revenue sharing, and they also wanted just a luxury tax, not a salary cap. Now that we're done with the 2004 side, 2005, January 17th through 21st, Trevor Linden of the Vancouver Canucks, who's the NHLPA's player president, I'm not sure how that works, represents NHLPA in small negotiations with owners, without Bettman or Goodnow present, or Bill Daly, who was the guy right behind. Everyone knows who Bill Daly is. And that never went anywhere. That really did not go anywhere. February 9th, Bettman comes out and says the season is canceled if a deal is not done within a week. Long story short, the deal was not done within a week. So he's saying on February 9th that the season, before that, they were even considering having a season. So Bettman says season. So February 9th, another week. That's February 16th. You're playing 20 games that season and then having saying hi-ho in the playoffs? I'm not exactly sure what the plan is here if a deal does go through. February 14th, NHLPA proposes $52 million cap. So I've marked dots on the board where important events happen. So we have the start of we have the deadline approaching where the first 5% rollback is. Bettman announces that the lockout. Mike Commodore says he will play. NHLPA offering the 24% rollback. NHL accepting the rollback, but with not adding a salary cap. There should be a dot there. I'm not sure why there isn't. And then that February 14th one's another one. The NHLPA proposing a $52 million salary cap. Right here is where the NHLPA loses. Done, finito, Goodnow's screwed. All this time, no salary cap, no salary cap, no salary cap. And then Goodnow now says, okay, now we'll have a salary cap because we're not winning here. They have no leverage. The only time the players had leverage was 92. 95 they didn't, now they didn't, 2013 they didn't. And the February 15th, the counteroffer comes out, it's leaked by the media. NHL counters with a $42.5 million salary cap. Offer is leaked by the media. NHLPA is flabbergasted. And they responded with a $49 million, which was rejected. Bettman came out and said, this is our good offer, the $42.5 million. This is our good offer, and it's not coming back if you reject it now. This is what you're going to get, or you're going to sink. February 16th, Bettman officially cancels the season, as he says. February 19th, 3 days later now, Mario Lemieux, not Claude Lemieux, and Gretzky join a last-ditch meeting to save the season. So now it's February 19th. Let's say you do get a season started in early March. You're going to do a month and a half a season, which is about maybe going to play your conference once each time. I don't even know where to begin with that. How you figure that out. March 24th, NHL cancels draft. June 25th, 26th in Ottawa. The draft would happen in July as a snake draft, which was the only time the NHL did this. And can't forget to mention Jeremy Roenick here. Now, of course, Jeremy Roenick is my dad's favorite player. He's one of the players I wish I got to see play. But it was rumored that Jeremy Roenick and several other players, veteran players, were saying, screw what's going on here, we just want to play hockey, as Mike Commodore did say. And there were backdoor negotiations, rumored backdoor negotiations, among veteran players and owners. And overall, this didn't sit over very well with the NHLPA or a lot of others. And of course, Roenick comes out and says after the lockout, as the cicadas get louder behind me, I made my money. That was Roenick about on. That was what Roenick said on possibly screwing over rookies, because then the rookie deal came in, solidified the amount of money they're going to make, and, well, I made my money. I mean, fair enough to him, but that's a pretty funny line to say the least. So Roenick does that, and among several veteran players are in on it, and the NHLPA is kind of screwed here. July 1st, talks resume after nothing can get done by then, and then it's only on July 13th Bettman and Goodnow announce a deal at $39 million, and Bob Goodnow immediately resigns because he's kind of screwed for agreeing to a salary cap of $39 million. You started with no salary cap, you end up at $39 million. NHLPA got not only swept in the 2004-05 season, the NHL played a 82-game season against the NHLPA, went 82-0, and then played 4 series against them in the playoffs and won in 4 exact sweeps to claim the Stanley Cup. The owners win big time. That's the only way to put it here. Of course, I will say, this lockout was absolutely necessary. For how long it went, no, it was not. For the end result that ended up happening, it could have, they should have just agreed to the $42.5 million or whatever offer was on the table then, because of course I'm sure not everything was absolutely released, but NHLPA gets destroyed, absolutely destroyed here. And let's see, on the board now for the draft, the way they did it was they had the 3 seasons previous where teams finished and how they did in the standings. That's how they decided who got the best odds for the draft lottery. Pittsburgh ends up with the number 1 pick. Who do they get? Sidney Crosby. Of course, many people thought it was rigged because Pittsburgh was in danger of relocation at the time, or retraction. Honestly, they were in horrible situations where Mario Lemieux was single-handedly saving that franchise. And of course, they have Fleury, they have Malkin, now they get Crosby, so the future for Pittsburgh looks bright. Get Jordan Staal the next year. And the snake draft, very interesting. Never happened again in the NHL. Hasn't happened since that year. Snake draft, of course, meaning the first team that picks gets picks 1 and 60. There's 30 teams at the time, and picks 30 and 31 also go to the same team. That's what that means. Another thing that happened was compliance buyouts. 9 teams opted to do compliance buyouts. 13 players. These included Chris Stratton of Colorado, Andrew Castles and Scott LaChance of Columbus, Pierre Turgeon in Dallas, Darian Hatcher, Darren McCartney, and Ray Whitney in Detroit, Matthew Biron in Florida, Matt Johnson in Minnesota, Bobby Holik with the New York Rangers, Tony Amonte and John LeClaire with Philadelphia, Brian Savage with Phoenix. Due to a contract dispute between Toronto and Owen Nolan, Toronto also arranged for a compliance buyout on Nolan. Guy that didn't end up getting bought out was Alexei Yashin. That could be a topic for a whole other Mike Milbury video if I ever decide to do one. But all of those players were bought out in a free charge. They get bought out, no biggie. It doesn't count against a salary cap because you're going down to $39 million when teams like Detroit had a salary of $65 million, around that area. So overall, this was helped to get them under the cap. This was all like that. There were also a lot of players who retired coming out of the 2004-05 lockout. And I didn't have enough space on the board to write these all down. NHL retirements. And these are guys that never played again. Let's see here. I'm seeing if I can find this. Adam Oates, Al McInnes, Ron Francis, Mark Messier, Steve Thomas, Cliff Ronning, Felix Potvin, Archer Zerbe, Scott Stevens, among several others, of course, who retired, but those are the big names right there. The NHL was never the same after this. Of course, new rules come in. The 2-line pass was removed. Very good, because that eliminated the trap. The trap was gone because that was a big problem before the lockout. Teams followed the 94-95 New Jersey Devils, the Jacques Lemaire coach team, who also brought it to Minnesota, Anaheim also used it pretty well. Florida was another team. Detroit could really play any style, but they also sometimes used it. Carolina was another one. Teams that didn't have the star power to compete with the top teams, they were the ones using the trap. So good, they got rid of those rules to open up the game. Very good on their part. I hate to say I agree with what the owners were doing here, but the owners, like, the salary cap saved the NHL in effect. Who knows what happened? Like, the teams could have retracted because of what happened here. I mean, I wasn't around for it, so of course I can't remember what exactly was going on at this time. But from everything I found out, the lockout kind of saved the NHL in effect. It was saved a league that was losing money, and allowed teams like Phoenix and, well, at the time, Carolina, Florida, teams that were barely staying afloat. Of course, the Canadian dollar coming back up. It was all very important that did happen. In terms of anything else I have to say on this, trying to think. I feel like there was one more thing I had to say. Of course, we'll talk about next season. We'll do it. Next season, I'll kind of do a overview of like what I'm going to do, mainly the series. This season was different because it's 2004-05, it's the lockout. 2005-06 will look much different when I cover that season. We'll have the divisions, trophy winners, how the playoffs went, anything of my knowledge that I know about it. And unfortunately, to this season, there was no Stanley Cup the year I was born. Of course, I'm born in like the fall area here, so everything kind of happens after I was born. It's unfortunate. It's funny that how I was born during a season that there was no hockey, and yet I'm all about hockey. So I think that's going to be all I have for you guys in this one. Tell me down below what you think of this kind of video. Tell me down below if you were around during the lockout, remember the lockout, anything you know about the lockout that I possibly could have missed on this board. Yeah, that's all I got to say here. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video, and I shall see you all in the next one. Have a good one.